10:47 p.m., March 12, 1999. Houston's night air is thick, heavy with the scent of rain that never quite falls. Streetlights flicker in uneven patterns, casting long uncertain shadows across cracked sidewalks. The city hums with distant life, sirens wailing somewhere far off, the low thrum of traffic on the interstate, the occasional bark of a dog echoing through the maze of suburban streets. But here, on this quiet stretch of pavement, time seems to slow, every second stretching out, taut and trembling. A young woman walks alone, her footsteps muffled by the dampness in the air. She is careful, glancing over her shoulder, clutching her phone in one hand, keys in the other. Her name is Emily Vasquez, 23 years old. She's just left her best friend's apartment, a place she's visited 100 times before. The night should have been ordinary, laughter, shared secrets, the comfort of routine. But tonight something is different. There's a tension in the air, a sense of being watched though the street appears empty. 51 p.m. Emily's phone buzzes, a text from her mother asking if she's on her way home. She types a quick reply, her fingers trembling slightly, though she can't say why. The glow of her screen illuminates her face for a moment, then vanishes as she slips the phone into her jacket pocket. She crosses the street, the soles of her shoes making soft, wet sounds against the asphalt. A car passes, headlights sweeping over her, then disappearing into the darkness. 6 p.m. The world narrows to the sound of her breathing, the rhythm of her steps. She's almost home, just 3 blocks to go. The neighborhood is familiar, but tonight it feels alien, every shadow a threat, every rustle of wind a warning. She quickens her pace, heart pounding, eyes darting from one pool of darkness to the next. Somewhere a porch light flickers, then dies. 1:03 p.m., a scream. Sharp, sudden, swallowed by the night. It lasts less than a second, barely more than a gasp, then silence. The kind of silence that presses in on all sides, suffocating, absolute. Emily's phone slips from her hand, landing in the grass beside the curb. The screen lights up, then goes dark. Somewhere nearby, a dog begins to bark, frantic and insistent, but no one comes outside. No one sees what happens next. Minutes pass. The street remains empty. The only evidence of Emily's presence, a single abandoned phone. Its screen cracked, still ringing with unanswered calls. The city moves on, oblivious. But in this small corner of Houston, something irrevocable has happened. A life has been interrupted, a future stolen in the space between heartbeats. By midnight, the rain finally begins to fall, washing away footprints, blurring the edges of what little evidence remains. The phone continues to ring, its sound muffled by the wet grass, a desperate signal lost in the night. No one answers. No one ever will. How does someone vanish in the heart of a city, leaving only silence behind? The question will echo through Houston for years to come, haunting detectives, tormenting a family, and casting a long, cold shadow over everything that follows. But the clues would not add up, not yet. Before the headlines, before the search parties and the endless questions, there was simply Emily. To those who loved her, she was more than a name on a missing poster. She was laughter at the dinner table, the warmth of a hug after a long day, the quiet strength that held her family together. Her world was a tapestry of small joys and quiet ambitions, woven into the fabric of a Houston neighborhood that pulsed with life and memory. Emily Vasquez was born on a humid July morning, the first child of Rosa and Miguel. Her mother would later recall the way Emily's tiny hand wrapped around her finger, the promise of a future, yet unwritten. Childhood photos show a girl with wide, searching eyes and a mischievous smile, hair always a little wild, knees perpetually scraped from backyard adventures. She was the kind of child who made friends easily, who stood up for others, who believed in the goodness of people. As she grew, so did her dreams. Emily wanted to be a nurse, inspired by the women in her family who had cared for neighbors and strangers alike. She worked part-time at a local diner, saving every dollar for college. Her days were filled with the ordinary rhythms of young adulthood, late-night study sessions, whispered phone calls, the thrill of first love, the ache of heartbreak. She was fiercely loyal, quick to forgive, and slow to judge. The Vasquez home was always open, a place where the scent of simmering spices drifted through open windows and laughter spilled out onto the porch. Emily's younger brother Daniel idolized her. She helped him with homework, cheered at his soccer games, and listened patiently to his worries. To her parents, she was a source of pride and hope, the embodiment of every sacrifice they had made. Neighbors remember Emily as a constant presence, walking her dog at dusk, volunteering at the church food drive, waving to the mailman each morning. She wore her favorite perfume, a soft floral scent that lingered in the air long after she'd passed. She loved sunflowers, filling her room with their bright, stubborn faces. Her diary, found later by her mother, was filled with sketches, song lyrics, and dreams for the future. One day I'll see the world. One day I'll make a difference, but beneath the surface there were shadows. Emily confided in her closest friend about a sense of unease in the weeks before she vanished, a feeling she couldn't quite name, a suspicion that someone was watching. She brushed it off, not wanting to worry her family. Life, after all, was supposed to be safe here. No one knew these would be her last days. The ordinary moments, her laughter echoing down the hallway, the way she lingered at the table after dinner, the soft click of her bedroom door closing at night, would become precious memories, replayed endlessly by those left behind. The neighborhood, once vibrant and familiar, would soon be marked by absence, every corner haunted by the question of what might have been. Emily's story is not just one of loss, but of a life interrupted, a future stolen in a moment, leaving only echoes in the hearts of those who loved her. The world would soon come to know her name, but for her family the pain was intimate, raw, and unending. And as the city slept, unaware of the tragedy unfolding, the clock ticked forward. The night was not yet done revealing its secrets. It began as an ordinary evening, the kind that slips by unnoticed until, in hindsight, every detail becomes a clue. The timeline of Emily Vasquez's disappearance would be reconstructed piece by piece, each moment scrutinized, each second weighed for meaning. But on that night, the hours passed with deceptive normalcy, the world unaware of the darkness gathering at its edges. 12 p.m. Emily arrives at her best friend's apartment, a modest brick building just a few blocks from her own home. The two young women laugh over takeout, sharing stories and secrets, the easy comfort of friendship filling the small living room. Outside, the city glows with the promise of spring, the air warm and restless. 30 p.m. A neighbor remembers seeing Emily on the balcony, her silhouette framed by the light from inside. She waves, smiling, her voice carrying softly on the breeze. She seemed happy, the neighbor would later recall, like she didn't have a care in the world. 10:15 p.m. Emily's phone buzzes, a message from her mother checking in. She replies quickly, promising to be home soon. The text is brief but reassuring. Rosa Vasquez, her mother, feels a familiar sense of relief. Emily is always responsible, always careful. And 47 p.m. Security footage from a nearby convenience store captures Emily walking past, her figure illuminated for a fleeting moment by the harsh fluorescent lights. She glances at her reflection in the window, tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, and continues on. The timestamp is burned into the investigation. 10:47 p.m., March 12, 1999, 10:53 p.m. A passing car slows as it approaches the intersection where Emily is last seen. The driver, a local delivery man, notices her crossing the street, head down, moving quickly. He thinks nothing of it at the time. Later, he will replay the moment over and over, searching for something he missed. 11:00 p.m. Emily is just 3 blocks from home. She sends a final text to her friend. Almost there. Talk tomorrow? The message is never answered. 1:03 p.m. The timeline fractures. No more texts. No more sightings. The world for Emily simply stops. Somewhere between the glow of the streetlights and the darkness of the trees, she vanishes. No witnesses. No sound but the distant rumble of thunder and the soft patter of rain beginning to fall. 10 p.m. A neighbor's dog begins to bark, agitated and insistent. The owner peers out the window, sees nothing but empty street. The barking continues, then fades. 17 p.m. Emily's phone, lying in the grass, begins to ring. Her mother, growing anxious, tries to call. The call goes unanswered. The screen lights up, then dims, the device slowly succumbing to the damp night air. By midnight, the search for Emily has not yet begun. Her family believes she is simply late, perhaps caught up in conversation, perhaps delayed by the weather. But the minutes tick by. each one a silent alarm, each one a step further from safety. In the days to come, investigators will pore over this timeline, searching for the moment when everything changed. They will examine phone records, interview witnesses, and replay security footage until the images blur. But the truth remains maddeningly out of reach, and then at 11:03 p.m. she was gone. No trace, no sound. Only the echo of footsteps swallowed by the night, and a city left to wonder how a young woman could disappear without a trace, in the space of a single heartbeat. But the first hours of the search would bring only chaos and more questions than answers. The first 48 hours after a disappearance are a crucible, a blur of panic, hope, and confusion, where every second feels like it might tip the scales between rescue and tragedy. For the Vasquez family, the night stretched into morning with a growing sense of dread. Emily was not the kind of daughter to stay out late without calling. By sunrise, worry had curdled into fear. Twam. Rosa Vasquez stands at the kitchen window, watching the street for any sign of her daughter. The phone sits silent on the counter, each minute of quiet a fresh wound. Miguel, Emily's father, drives the neighborhood in slow, desperate circles, searching for any trace, a familiar figure, a flash of her jacket, anything. The city is waking up, but for the Vasquez family, time has stopped. 3 a.m. the call to police is made. The dispatcher's voice is calm, methodical, but Rosa's words tumble out in a rush. "My daughter didn't come home. She's never done this before. Please, you have to help." Within the hour, a patrol car arrives, blue lights flashing in the pale morning. Officers take down details, ask about Emily's habits, her friends, her state of mind. The questions feel endless, the answers inadequate. a.m. The search begins in earnest. Officers fan out across the neighborhood, knocking on doors, showing Emily's photo to anyone who will look. The air is thick with tension, the scent of wet grass and exhaust fumes mingling in the early light. A search party forms, family, friends, neighbors moving through backyards, alleys, and empty lots. Every shadow is a possible hiding place, every discarded object a potential clue. 12 a.m. A single earring is found near the curb where Emily's phone was discovered. It glints in the sunlight, delicate and out of place. Forensic technicians arrive, marking the spot with a small yellow flag. Nearby tire tracks are visible in the soft mud, leading away from the scene. The tracks are photographed, measured, and cast in plaster. The evidence is thin, but it is something, a thread to follow in the darkness. 47 a.m. Police radios crackle with updates. A witness comes forward, recalling a car idling at the corner around the time Emily vanished. The description is vague. A dark sedan, maybe blue, maybe black. The information is logged, but it is one of dozens of leads, each one a possible path, each one a potential dead end. By noon, the story has spread. Local news vans arrive, cameras trained on the Vasquez home. Reporters ask questions the family cannot answer. The neighborhood is transformed, the ordinary routines of daily life replaced by a sense of collective unease. Children are kept indoors. Strangers are eyed with suspicion. Inside the police station, detectives gather around a growing wall of evidence, maps, photographs, timelines, and notes. Coffee cups litter the desks, the air thick with the smell of stale caffeine and anxiety. Every officer knows the statistics. The longer a person is missing, the slimmer the chances of finding them alive. But no one is ready to give up. Not yet. Every minute mattered. Every clue could be the one, Detective Ramirez would later recall, his voice heavy with memory. The pressure is immense, the stakes impossibly high. The city holds its breath, waiting for news, for hope, for any sign that Emily might still be found. But as the hours slip away, chaos gives way to uncertainty. The evidence is there, but the answers remain elusive. The first 48 hours end not with resolution, but with a deepening sense of dread. And outside, the whispers begin. Rumors that will soon ripple through the community, changing everything. Rumors move faster than truth. In the days after Emily's disappearance, the neighborhood becomes a crucible of fear and speculation, every conversation laced with anxiety, every glance tinged with suspicion. The familiar streets of Houston, once alive with the easy rhythms of daily life, now feel altered, charged with a nervous energy that refuses to dissipate. By the second night, porch lights burn late into the evening. Neighbors gather in small uneasy clusters, voices hushed but urgent. Theories multiply in the shadows. Some say they saw a strange car circling the block. Others whisper about a man in a hooded jacket, seen loitering near the park. The details shift and blur, but the fear is real, palpable, contagious. At the corner store, the cashier recounts seeing Emily just hours before she vanished. She looked over her shoulder, like she was worried about something, he tells a reporter, his words quickly spreading through the community. In the church basement, mothers clutch their children tighter, warning them not to walk alone, not to trust anyone. The sense of safety that once defined this place is gone, replaced by a collective vigilance that borders on paranoia. The local news amplifies the tension. Headlines flash across television screens. Young woman missing, police seek clues. The Vasquez family's grief is on display for all to see, their pain mirrored in the faces of neighbors who wonder if their own children are safe. The city's heartbeat quickens, every siren a possible omen, every unfamiliar face a potential threat. Gossip becomes a form of currency. In the beauty salon, women trade stories, some true, most not. They say she was seen with a stranger, one woman murmurs, her voice barely above a whisper. A man no one recognized. The rumor takes on a life of its own, growing with each retelling, feeding the community's unease. At night, the streets are emptier than usual. The sound of footsteps echoes louder. The darkness feels deeper. Parents double-check locks, draw curtains tight. Children peek out from behind blinds, searching for answers in the empty street. The sense of community that once bound these neighbors together now feels fragile, threatened by the unknown. But beneath the fear, there is also a fierce determination. Volunteers organize search parties, combing through parks and vacant lots. Flyers bearing Emily's face are taped to every lamppost, every storefront window. The neighborhood rallies around the Vasquez family, delivering meals, offering prayers, holding candlelight vigils. Hope flickers, stubborn and defiant, even as the days stretch on without answers. Still the whispers persist. Some say the police aren't doing enough. Others wonder if the truth is closer than anyone suspects. Some say the killer still walks among us, an elderly neighbor confides, her eyes darting nervously to the window. The words hang in the air, heavy and unresolved. In the absence of certainty, suspicion becomes a way to fill the void. Every neighbor is a potential witness or a potential suspect. The lines between fact and fiction blur, and the community's collective imagination runs wild. The city is restless, haunted by the question of what happened to Emily Vasquez. The search for answers has only just begun, but already the cost is mounting. A neighborhood transformed, trust eroded, innocence lost. And as the rumors swirl, the investigation takes on a new urgency. For the detectives assigned to the case, the pressure is mounting. The need for answers is no longer just professional. It's personal. The obsession is about to begin. Obsession is a quiet thing at first. It begins with a sense of duty, a promise made to a grieving family, a conviction that justice must be found. But as the days turn to weeks, and the case of Emily Vasquez remains unsolved, that sense of duty hardens into something sharper, more consuming. For the detectives assigned to her disappearance, the case becomes a shadow that follows them everywhere, a puzzle that refuses to be solved. A ghost that will not rest. Detective Luis Ramirez is the first to feel its weight. He is seasoned, methodical, known for his calm under pressure. But Emily's case is different. The evidence is thin, the leads are fleeting, and the community's fear is growing louder by the day. Ramirez finds himself returning to the scene night after night, retracing Emily's last steps, searching for something, anything that might have been missed. The street where she vanished becomes a second home, its every crack and shadow etched into his memory. Inside the precinct, the investigation takes on a life of its own. The walls of the detective's office are soon covered in maps, photographs, and timelines. Red string connects locations, names, and dates, a web of possibility and frustration. Coffee stains bloom across case files, the air thick with the smell of exhaustion and determination. Ramirez's notebook fills with scribbled observations, half-formed theories, and questions that seem to multiply with every passing day. He is not alone in his obsession. Detective Carla Nguyen, new to the department but relentless in her pursuit of answers, throws herself into the case with a kind of desperate energy. She pores over witness statements, re-interviews neighbors, and spends long hours staring at the evidence board, willing the pieces to fit together. The two detectives form an uneasy partnership, united by a shared sense of responsibility and a growing sense of frustration. Sleep becomes a luxury. Ramirez wakes in the middle of the night, replaying the timeline in his mind, haunted by the image of Emily's abandoned phone. Goyen dreams of tire tracks in the mud, of a car disappearing into the darkness. Both are driven by the same question. How does someone vanish without a trace in a city that never truly sleeps? The pressure from above is relentless. The media demands answers. The community demands action. The Vasquez family's pain is a constant reminder of what is at stake. Every day without progress feels like a personal failure, a mark against their names. The detectives begin to take the case home with them. Files spread across kitchen tables, evidence photos tucked into briefcases, the weight of Emily's absence pressing down on every moment of their lives. As the weeks drag on, the investigation becomes a test of endurance. Leads dry up. Witnesses contradict themselves. Theories collapse under scrutiny. Still, Ramirez and Goyen refuse to let go. They chase every rumor, follow every hunch, no matter how improbable. The case becomes an obsession, a riddle that gnaws at their sanity. How do you chase a ghost for years and not lose yourself? The narrator asks, the question hanging in the air like a challenge or a warning. The detective's descent is not marked by dramatic breakthroughs or sudden revelations, but by the slow, grinding erosion of hope. Yet even as the case threatens to consume them, they cling to the belief that the truth is out there, waiting to be found. But the city is not done with its secrets. Ahead lie false leads, dead ends, and years of darkness, years in which the case will grow colder, and the cost of obsession will become painfully clear. Years pass, and the case of Emily Vasquez becomes a labyrinth of false hope and bitter disappointment. The initial flurry of activity gives way to a grinding, relentless search for answers that never seem to come. For every promising lead, there is a dead end. For every suspect, an alibi that holds. The detectives, once fueled by adrenaline and purpose, now find themselves caught in a cycle of frustration and despair. The first false trail emerges just weeks after Emily's disappearance. A tip comes in from a woman convinced she saw Emily at a gas station on the outskirts of Houston. The surveillance footage is grainy, the figure's face obscured by a hood. Detectives rush to the scene, hearts pounding with hope only to discover it is not her. The disappointment is crushing, but it is only the beginning. Over the months, the investigation sprawls outward. Anonymous calls flood the tip line, some sincere, others cruel. A man claims to have seen Emily at a bus station in Dallas. Another insists she was spotted in a downtown nightclub. Each report is followed up, each one leading nowhere. The detectives chase shadows, their optimism eroding with every fruitless search. Suspects emerge only to be cleared. A local handyman with a criminal record is questioned for hours, his every movement scrutinized. He is eventually released, his alibi airtight. Another man, a former boyfriend, is brought in after rumors swirl about a recent argument. He breaks down in the interrogation room, sobbing with grief and frustration, but the evidence does not support his involvement. The detectives are left with nothing but more questions. The Vasquez family rides a roller coaster of hope and heartbreak. Every time the phone rang, we hoped it was her, Rosa Vasquez would later say, her voice trembling with memory. Every time it wasn't. The family clings to each new lead, desperate for closure, only to be let down again and again. The pain is relentless, a wound that refuses to heal. The community, too, is battered by the endless uncertainty. Theories abound, each one more outlandish than the last. Some believe Emily ran away, unable to face the pressures of her life. Others are convinced she was taken by someone she knew. The rumors swirl, feeding on the lack of answers, deepening the sense of unease that hangs over the neighborhood. Inside the precinct, the evidence board grows cluttered with faces and names, each one a reminder of the investigation's failures. The detectives' notes become more frantic, their theories more desperate. They revisit old interviews, re-examine physical evidence, hoping for a detail they missed. But the trail is cold, the clues exhausted. The years grind on. New cases come and go, but Emily's file remains open, a constant reminder of what has been lost. The detectives age, their faces lined with worry and regret. Some move on, unable to bear the weight of the unsolved case. Others, like Ramirez and Nguyen, refuse to let go, haunted by the feeling that the answer is just out of reach. The trail went cold. But the city never forgot. Emily's name lingers in the air, spoken in hushed tones at family gatherings, whispered in the halls of the police station. The case becomes a legend, a cautionary tale, a scar on the city's conscience. But even as hope fades, the story is not over. In the years to come, a new kind of silence will settle over the Vasquez family, a silence born not of fear, but of exhaustion. The cold case files gather dust, waiting for the day when the truth will finally come to light. Time is merciless. As the years slip by, the case of Emily Vasquez drifts from urgent headline to faded memory, from a city's obsession to a family's private grief. The world moves on, but for those closest to Emily, the pain remains as sharp as ever. A constant ache, a question that refuses to be answered. The Vasquez home becomes a shrine to hope and heartbreak. On the mantel, Emily's graduation photo stands beside a flickering candle, its flame a fragile symbol of faith. Each year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, the family gathers for a vigil. Friends and neighbors join them, holding candles against the darkness, their faces illuminated by the soft, trembling light. Prayers are whispered, songs are sung, but the emptiness persists. The rituals bring comfort but never closure. Missing posters, once bright and urgent, fade and curl at the edges, battered by sun and rain. The city's attention shifts to new tragedies, new faces. But for Rosa and Miguel, every day is marked by absence. Emily's room remains untouched, her bed neatly made, her favorite books stacked on the nightstand, the scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Daniel, her younger brother, grows up in the shadow of her loss, his childhood shaped by the silence that fills their home. Inside the police station, the case file grows heavier with each passing year. New detectives inherit the burden, flipping through pages yellowed with age, reading notes scrawled in the margins by those who came before. The evidence is boxed and stored, the photographs filed away. The wall of faces and maps is dismantled, replaced by newer cases, fresher tragedies. But Emily's name is never erased. Her file remains open, a silent accusation, a reminder of unfinished business. For Detective Ramirez, the case becomes a private torment. He visits the Vasquez family on holidays, unable to offer anything but his presence. He sits with Rosa in the quiet of her kitchen, listening as she recounts the same memories, the same hopes. "We just wanted to bring her home," she tells him, her voice breaking. The words hang in the air heavy with longing. The years are marked by small, bitter milestones. Daniel's graduation, celebrated with a smile that never quite reaches his eyes. Rosa's birthday spent in quiet reflection. The holidays, each one a reminder of the empty chair at the table. The family learns to live with the ache, to carry it with them like a scar. The city, too, bears the mark of Emily's absence. The neighborhood is quieter, more cautious. Parents walk their children to school, eyes scanning the street for danger. The story of Emily Vasquez becomes a warning, a lesson whispered to the next generation. Be careful, stay close, trust no one. But beneath the numbness, a stubborn hope endures. Rosa lights a candle in the window every night, a beacon for a daughter who may never return. The family refuses to let go, even as the world forgets. The pain is constant, but so is the love. And somewhere, buried in the evidence, the truth waits, silent, patient, untouched by time. The long winter of the cold case is not the end. It is only a pause, a breath held in the darkness before the dawn. But change is coming. In the shadows of the evidence room, a new technology is stirring. The past is about to awaken, and with it the hope that justice may finally be within reach. Hope, when it returns, comes quietly. It does not announce itself with fanfare or certainty, but with a whisper, a possibility that the past is not as distant as it seems. For the Vasquez family, for the detectives who never truly let go, the breakthrough begins not with a new witness or a sudden confession, but with the hum of machines and the promise of science. It is the spring of 2022. The Houston Police Department's cold case unit is smaller now, but more determined than ever. A new detective, Elena Torres, joins the team, bringing with her a reputation for persistence and a belief in the power of technology. She is young, but she knows the weight of unsolved cases, the way they haunt the halls of the precinct and the hearts of families left behind. Torres is drawn to Emily's file almost immediately. She reads every page, studies every photograph, and walks the route Emily took on that fateful night. But it is the evidence, carefully preserved, sealed in plastic, untouched for years, that captures her attention. Among the items catalogued, a single earring, a scrap of fabric, and, most crucially, a swab taken from beneath Emily's fingernails. In 1999, the technology was limited. The sample was too small, too degraded. But now, the world has changed. Torres contacts the State Crime Lab, requesting a re-examination of the evidence using the latest advances in DNA analysis. The process is painstaking, the wait excruciating. Weeks pass as the lab technicians work, their gloved hands moving with precision, their faces set in concentration. Machines whir and beep, extracting secrets from the past, coaxing information from fragments that once seemed useless. We can see what was invisible in 1999, the lead forensic scientist explains, her voice steady but tinged with excitement. The new technology is powerful, able to build a genetic profile from the smallest trace, to match DNA against vast databases that did not exist when Emily vanished. The evidence is run, checked, and rechecked. The results are double-checked, then sent to the detectives. The call comes on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Detective Torres sits at her desk, the hum of the precinct around her, as the lab technician's voice crackles through the phone. "We have a match," he says. The words hang in the air, electric, impossible. For a moment, Torres cannot breathe. She writes the name down, her hand trembling. The DNA profile does not belong to a stranger. It is someone who lived in the neighborhood, someone who was interviewed in the early days of the investigation, a man whose name appears in the case file, but who was never considered a serious suspect. The revelation is both shocking and strangely inevitable. The answer was there all along, buried in the evidence, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Torres gathers the team. The detectives pore over the old interviews, the suspects' statements, the alibis that once seemed unbreakable. They revisit the scene, walking the same streets, seeing them now with new eyes. The pieces begin to fit together, the timeline shifting, the story taking on a new shape. For the Vasquez family, the news is both a blessing and a curse. After so many years of silence, the possibility of answers is almost too much to bear. Rosa clings to hope, her hands shaking as she listens to the detectives explain the breakthrough. "We never stopped believing," she whispers, tears streaming down her face. "We just wanted to know." The city, too, feels the tremor of possibility. News spreads quickly, old wounds reopened, old fears rekindled. The community that once whispered in the shadows now waits, breathless, for the truth to finally come to light. The evidence is clear. The science is irrefutable. The past, once thought lost, has been resurrected by technology and tenacity. The detectives know what must come next. A confrontation, an investigation, a reckoning. The results would change everything. The suspect, once hidden in plain sight, is about to be revealed, and with that revelation, the final act of Emily Vasquez's story will begin. The truth, when it finally emerges, is both shocking and eerily familiar. The DNA match points to a man who had lived just 2 blocks from the Vasquez family, a neighbor, a face in the crowd, someone who had blended seamlessly into the fabric of the community. His name is Victor Salgado. In 1999, he was 28 years old, a quiet, unremarkable figure who worked nights as a mechanic and kept mostly to himself. He had been interviewed in the early days of the investigation, his name logged in the case file, his alibi accepted without question. No one had looked at him twice. Now, more than 2 decades later, the evidence is undeniable. The DNA found beneath Emily's fingernails, her last desperate act of resistance, matches Victor Salgado with scientific certainty. The revelation sends shockwaves through the cold case unit. Detective Torres and her team pore over every detail of Salgado's life, searching for connections, for motives, for the cracks that had been missed all those years ago. They revisit his old statements, listening for inconsistencies, for the subtle tells of a man hiding something. In the original interview, Salgado had claimed he was working late the night Emily disappeared, fixing a customer's car in his garage. The alibi had seemed solid until Torres discovers that the customer in question had moved out of state months before the crime. The lie buried for years now stands exposed. The detectives dig deeper. They speak to former neighbors, piecing together a portrait of a man who was always on the periphery, polite but distant, helpful but never truly known. Some recall seeing him walking late at night, his face shadowed beneath the brim of a cap. Others remember a temper that flared behind closed doors, arguments muffled by thin apartment walls, but no one had ever suspected him of violence, let alone murder. The community reels as the news spreads. "We never suspected him," one neighbor says, her voice trembling with disbelief. "He was just there, always quiet, always alone." The realization that the answer had been so close, that the man responsible for Emily's disappearance had lived among them for years, is almost too much to bear. Fear gives way to anger, to a sense of betrayal that lingers in every conversation. Detective Ramirez, now retired but still haunted by the case, returns to the precinct to offer his insight. He sits with Torres, reviewing the evidence, his hands shaking as he recalls the early days of the investigation. "He was right there all along," Ramirez says, his voice heavy with regret. "We just didn't see it. The investigation builds momentum. Surveillance is set up on Salgado, who now lives in a small apartment on the outskirts of Houston. The detectives watch as he goes about his daily routines, grocery shopping, working odd jobs, moving through life with the same quiet anonymity that once shielded him from suspicion. But beneath the surface, the pressure is mounting. The walls are closing in. Inside the cold case unit, the mood is tense, electric. The detectives know they have one chance to get it right. They gather the evidence, DNA results, the false alibi, witness statements, and prepare for the confrontation. The weight of 23 years presses down on them, the need for justice sharper than ever. Would he confess, or would the truth die with him? The question hangs in the air unanswered as the detectives move in. The city holds its breath, waiting for the final piece of the puzzle to fall into place. The time for shadows is over. The reckoning is at hand. And as the detectives close in on Victor Salgado, the story of Emily Vasquez edges toward its long-awaited resolution. But the confrontation will not bring simple closure. The next hours will test the limits of justice and the strength of those who have waited so long for the truth. The moment of reckoning arrives on a gray morning, the sky heavy with the threat of rain. Detectives Torres and Nguyen, joined by a team of officers, approach Victor Salgado's apartment with a sense of grim purpose. The years of waiting, the endless nights spent chasing shadows have all led to this. The hallway is silent as they knock on the door, the sound echoing down the narrow corridor. Inside, Salgado answers, his face unreadable, his eyes betraying nothing. He is brought to the precinct, the familiar hum of fluorescent lights and the low murmur of voices filling the air. In the interrogation room, the walls seem to close in, the space charged with tension. Salgado sits across from Torres and Nguyen, his hands folded, his gaze fixed on the table. The detectives lay out the evidence, each piece methodically, relentlessly. The DNA match, the false alibi, the timeline that no longer fits. At first, Salgado denies everything. His voice is flat, his answers rehearsed. But the weight of the evidence is crushing, undeniable. Torres leans forward, her voice steady but edged with emotion. "Emily fought back," she says quietly. "We found your DNA under her nails. She tried to stop you." The words hang in the air, heavy and inescapable. Minutes pass in silence. Salgado's composure begins to crack. His hands tremble. He looks up, meeting Torres's eyes for the first time. There is a flicker of something. Fear, regret, or perhaps just exhaustion. The room feels smaller, the air thicker. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he begins to speak. The confession is halting, fragmented, as if the truth itself is too heavy to bear. Salgado admits to seeing Emily that night, to following her as she walked home. He describes a confrontation that escalated, a moment of anger and panic that spiraled out of control. He does not offer excuses, only the bare facts, a struggle, a scream, a life ended in a flash of violence. He tells them where he left her, the details etched into his memory, the guilt festering for years. The detectives listen, their faces impassive, their hearts pounding. The words are both a relief and a torment. After so many years of silence, the truth is finally spoken aloud. The confession is recorded, transcribed, and entered into evidence. The case that haunted Houston for more than 2 decades is at last solved. News of the arrest spreads quickly. The Vasquez family is notified, the call coming in the early hours of the morning. Rosa answers, her hands shaking, her breath catching in her throat. The detectives explain what has happened, their voices gentle but unyielding. "We finally have answers," Rosa says, tears streaming down her face. "But at what cost?" The relief is real, but so is the sorrow. The wound, though no longer open, will never fully heal. The community reacts with a mixture of shock and catharsis. Some gather outside the Vasquez home, leaving flowers and candles, offering words of comfort. Others struggle to process the revelation that the man responsible had lived among them for so long. The sense of safety, once shattered, is slow to return. For the detectives, the resolution is bittersweet. The case is closed, but the years of obsession have left their mark. Detective Ramirez, watching from the sidelines, feels a weight lift from his shoulders, even as regret lingers. Torres and Nguyen file the final reports, their work done, but the echoes of Emily's story will follow them always. Justice, after 23 years, is never simple. The truth brings answers, but it cannot restore what was lost. The city exhales, the long nightmare finally over, but the scars remain. As the sun rises over Houston, the world feels changed, older, sadder, but perhaps in some small way redeemed. The reckoning is complete, but the journey toward healing has only just begun. Yet even as the case is closed, the question lingers: what does justice truly mean when the cost is so high? The answer, like the night Emily vanished, is both clear and impossibly complex. Closure is a word people use, but for the Vasquez family, it is a feeling that never fully arrives. The arrest and confession of Victor Salgado bring answers, but not peace. In the weeks after the case is closed, the city of Houston moves forward. But the echoes of Emily's story linger, haunting the streets, the homes, and the hearts of all who remember. The Vasquez home is quieter now. The constant stream of visitors slows. The phone calls dwindle. Rosa and Miguel sit together in the evenings, sometimes in silence, sometimes sharing memories of their daughter, her laughter, her stubbornness, the way she filled a room with light. Daniel, now a young man, carries the weight of his sister's absence into adulthood. He visits her grave often, leaving sunflowers, the flowers she loved most, and speaking softly to the headstone as if she might still hear. The community, too, is changed. The fear that once gripped the neighborhood has faded, replaced by a cautious hope. Parents still walk their children to school, but there is a new sense of vigilance, a quiet promise to never forget. The story of Emily Vasquez becomes a lesson passed down, a reminder of the fragility of safety, the importance of looking out for one another. Candlelight vigils are held each year on the anniversary of her disappearance, the soft glow of hundreds of flames flickering against the night, a testament to a life that mattered. Detective Elena Torres, whose determination brought the case to its end, finds herself changed as well. She keeps a copy of Emily's file in her desk drawer, a reminder of the power of persistence and the cost of obsession. She visits the Vasquez family from time to time, never with answers but always with respect. Detective Ramirez, now fully retired, walks the old neighborhood on quiet mornings, pausing at the corner where Emily was last seen. He carries the memory of the case with him, a scar and a lesson. The city's wounds begin to heal, but the scars remain. For some, the revelation that the killer lived among them for so long is a source of lingering unease. For others, the case is a testament to the power of community, of science, of never giving up. The Cold Case Unit receives new funding, inspired by the success of Emily's case. Other families, still waiting for answers, find hope in the story, a belief that, even after decades, the truth can still come to light. In the quiet moments, Rosa lights a candle in the window, just as she did for so many years. The flame is smaller now, but it burns with the same stubborn hope. She speaks at local schools, sharing Emily's story, urging young people to look out for one another, to trust their instincts, to never be afraid to ask for help. Her pain has become a purpose, her loss a call to action. Detective Torres reflects on the case in her own way. "Some wounds never heal, but truth brings light," she says in a rare interview, her voice steady but soft. She knows that justice is never perfect, that answers do not erase pain. But she also knows that every solved case is a promise kept, a vow to the lost, and to those who loved them, that they will not be forgotten. The city of Houston, once haunted by the mystery of Emily Vasquez, now carries her memory forward. Her name is spoken with reverence, her story a reminder of both the darkness that can hide in plain sight and the light that can emerge, even after years of silence. How many more answers lie waiting in the dark just beyond the reach of science? The question lingers, a challenge and a hope. For every family still searching, for every detective still haunted by an unsolved case, Emily's story is a beacon, a testament to the power of persistence, the resilience of love and the enduring need for truth. The mystery is solved, but the echoes remain, and in those echoes, the city finds both its sorrow and its strength.